The success of the dual atmosphere probe's salvation was a massive boost for the engineering team at the KSC. For the first time in decades, there was a real sense of pride all across the complex, and a visceral feeling that the mission was going to be one of success and prosperity. Everyone was so elated that they almost forgot to recall the colossal insurance scam turned emergency survival training aboard the experimental shuttles all those years ago, which helped to fund the construction of the Conspiracy Aurora. On top of this, it also trained Bob and Bill, two Kerbinauts aboard each respective shuttle, in the arts of high-speed water impact survival, as well as long-term endurance on barren terrain. These skills were essential to have if a landing on Laythe were to occur, so they were incorporated into the scam to kill two birds with one stone. The public were not made aware of Bob and Bill's survival, and they were given different names on the publicly released crew rosters. KASA would certainly be in a tight spot if any of this was discovered. However, it would not be as tight as the spot they were about to be thrown into, as the Conspiracy Aurora hurtled towards its terminal approach at Laythe. KASA's karma was indeed catching up to them fast, and that's what you're seeing in this video. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Shamrock Dawn, and this is the episode where things start to go very, very wrong, as they usually do in my missions. So up to this point at the moment, let me just recap as we begin our approach to Laythe. I'll recap quickly what's happened at the moment. We have built a interplanetary ship that will be on its way, that has made its way to Jool, called the Conspiracy Aurora. On it has a Laythe lander. It had a bunch of orbiters and a probe for Jool's atmosphere, which we released in the last episode. And currently we are coming on our approach to Laythe now, ready to actually come in and land on this thing. We were, however, pretty low on fuel at the time, so I was making this sort of adjustment in the hope that maybe we'd be able to sort of adjust our orbit enough to sort of keep ourselves on an orbit and wait for the arrival of Artemis. I wasn't particularly confident I was going to make this actual Laythe capture this time around, so I decided to just go for it anyway, seeing as this amount of fuel is really negligible with a fuel resupply already on its way. So I decided to do it just to see what I can do, and inevitably we will run out of fuel. This episode is full of quick saves, quick loading for a number of different reasons, because this episode's been hard to make. This is because of a number of reasons. Firstly, as you will quickly see, it's due to my incompetence, and the main reason that things have gone wrong. On top of that, I have been having issues with the save and what have you, but I think I've managed to resolve those sorts of things now. And on top of this, I've also had problems with my audio recording software. Those of you guys who follow me on Twitter, it's at the Lefty Scott. Of course, it'll be linked in the description down below. But you may remember last Sunday that I had a few issues with recording due to for some reason my audio codec messed up, and I spent the best part of 4 hours trying to correct that, which was a wonderful experience. It meant I had all of my wires at the back of my computer just strewn over my bedroom floor, and it was just an absolute pain to try and fix, but I've got it resolved. This is the third time of me trying to record this recording here for Shamrock Dawn, so this is probably why it's later. This would have gone out on Thursday, but instead it's going out on like Saturday instead because of the recording. It was just so annoying, and I've been so busy this week as well. But you can see here we're coming up on a Laythe approach now. I think this is our second quick load, maybe. Well, I think it's the second quick load, either, or it's the second attempt. You can see here we're literally going as a flyby this time, and I think it's at this point that we decide that we're going to probably wait for Artemis, because you can see me here trying to see if I can perhaps rendezvous with Laythe again to see if I can get an assist and maybe kick myself off. But I quickly realise that this is probably a bad idea. Bearing in mind that I could get kicked in any direction and I'm not quite sure where. Although I do keep trying, because I'm an idiot, really. But the long and the short of it is, we decide that a landing on Laythe here, coming in at the speeds we would if we did actually detach the lander, it would probably be better to just wait for the Artemis resupply mission, which of course, as I said, is on its way. In the last episode, you saw it do a flyby of Juno in order to get a bit of a gravity assist, although people in the comments section have actually told me now, and they are very, very right, that I did actually spend more Delta V going past Juno to actually get to Jool than I would have done just straight up burning for Jool, which is my bad on that part, because, well, I'm an idiot basically. But hey, it looked more cinematic. Ooh, it looked better, but it necessarily wasn't the most efficient burn in the world. But hey, this is kind of just a fun series, I guess. Fun series which is sort of story based, I guess, but I'm kind of just making the story up as I go along, depending on the events that actually happen in game. So you can see here we're now actually trying to very slowly turn the Conspiracy Aurora onto the maneuver node here so that we can do what we can of this burn. I already see that it's too much Delta V to actually do. Yeah, this didn't go well to begin with, so we start correcting. I think we do get an encounter with Laythe, maybe not. No, we don't end up getting an encounter with Laythe, I think. So we're just left on this orbit, so instead we decide to wait for the arrival of the Conspiracy of the Artemis fuel probe. Or we decide to quick load, because I'm an idiot, and try this thing again. This, like I say, this episode is just full of me quick loading, because, well, I really didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. I got a less than optimal capture around Jool here, and in hindsight, I should have burnt some of the lander's fuel sooner than I did. But here we go to the Artemis fuel probe. This, of course, is now on a path to Jool. We have to, of course, correct its orbital inclination now, so that it will arrive at Jool on the proper plane that it can rendezvous with the Conspiracy Aurora. You can see the Conspiracy is actually on a slightly inclined plane relative to Jool. The eccentric orbit isn't really much of an issue, because we can correct the Artemis's orbit once we've actually got there, but first we have to get ourselves on the correct plane. We started on the correct plane, and we actually got a really good rendezvous to begin with. We cut out a lot of the maneuver node faffing, because that's basically what this episode is. But we actually get a really good rendezvous at some point with the Conspiracy Aurora once we perform dual capture. It was something like a 10-kilometer separation. You'll see it a bit later on in the video. But you can see here, I'd noticed, of course, that the Conspiracy Aurora, while I've been time accelerating on Artemis, had of course encountered Laythe, because I was an idiot and left it on a trajectory that encountered Laythe, and so as a result it gotten kicked onto a slightly more eccentric orbit. Thankfully, its inclination had only changed by like 0.2 of a degree, so all we had to do was reload with Artemis and just correct as accordingly. And I think this is where we actually get the really cool sort of the cool rendezvous of about 10 kilometers. Either that or it's another quick save away. All of this footage is very, very confusing for me, bearing in mind I'm recording this like a week after I've shot it and edited it all together, so do bear with me. So you can see here, this is where we're trying to get our intersect, and it's a very, very close intersect, and I was very pleased with that. And so as a result, we decide to just go with it. We just start time accelerating. We wait for Artemis's arrival in the Joolian system to actually start coming down here. We're of course coming down low over Jool, which is probably the best way, because it may not be the best way. What do I know? I'm terrible at this game. You guys know that I'm terrible at this game. So you can see, I think we ended up quick loading here because we got kicked onto an orbit yet again. This kept happening because I decided not to. I was adamant that I wasn't going to burn any of the fuel in the lander. The reason being, I wanted a full tank of fuel in that lander, so ready for Laythe. On hindsight, I probably just could have fueled it up from Artemis and it just been a bit less fuel to bring home, but I am an idiot. And so eventually I started using the RCS to try and burn, and just to try and get myself off of an encounter with Laythe. But it ends up being just too much to bear, because even the RCS is terrible. And you can see here, this is where stuff starts to go really wrong. I just quick saved, And I then realised, once I was trying to put Artemis into orbit, after I quick saved, that of course the Conspiracy Aurora had encountered Laythe something awful. And so as a result, it's now in not only a polar orbit around Jool, but also an eccentric one. And I'd quick saved, so as a result, I couldn't reverse it. This is the problem. This is the main problem of this mission now, and the one that I'm going to be spending a while trying to fix, because I think I have like multiple attempts here of trying to get Artemis into a proper orbit around Jool that will intersect it, but because I'd corrected my inclination further down the line, the delta V requirement to actually get it on the correct plane was more than Artemis had in both its fuel reserve for the Conspiracy Aurora and its own fuel reserve to actually get it to Jool. So really, we're kind of screwed, really. This is kind of me just sort of messing around now with maneuver nodes, trying to get everything sort of fixed and everything, and I finally decide to dump some fuel from the lander into the tank of the main ship here, to try and at least sort of get our orbits similar to the plane of Artemis. But it's fair to say at this point that Artemis has well and truly failed. This is more damage limitation than anything, and you would normally think, and I would normally think in this situation, that this mission is screwed, and that the most we can do is just pump all of the fuel into the transfer stage and do our best to try and come home. But you can see here I'm trying to use Laythe, put ourselves back onto a course that intersects Laythe, so that we can sort of at least try and minimise our delta V requirement here to actually get us into an orbit like this. But I would normally be thinking, and I was thinking, that this mission would be royally screwed at this point. And I really was thinking that up until probably about 3 days ago, when I was talking about this massive disaster with my friend in a lesson at college. And he suggested a rather elaborate but rather ingenious rescue plan. And you will be seeing that in the next episode of Shamrock Dawn. It is very elaborate, and I'm not sure if it's going to work, so please do not get angry with me if it doesn't work. I'm pretty confident, maybe. I just don't know, but it's really cool, and I think it's going to be a fitting finale. We are still going to be landing on Laythe, by the way. We're not chickening out the landing. This is going to be something that's happening still. I want to make sure that all mission objectives are completed. Of course, though, KASA's funding, I know they said NASA then all, KASA's funding is depleted. How can they send another mission after Artemis? They said they would be on their own. Well, I guess you'll just have to find out to see how that sort of turns out. Just remember that KASA haven't been the only space agency in the KSP missions series to have sent experimental probes. I will leave you with that if you guys have been long-term watchers of this series. But you can see here we're trying to actually correct our course, but really it's futile. It's helped a little bit, which means it'll be pretty good for the next mission, or at least better than it was for the next mission. But frankly, it's not really worth it here. We still got some fuel in the lander in case we have to make any emergency adjustments. But to be honest, all we got to do here is sit and take beauty shots, which I know Kerbals can photosynthesize, so they're fine. They'll be fine. Trust me, they can, I don't know, suck water from the rocks or something. But we'll find out how they get on in the next episode. If you did like this episode, remember to like and subscribe for more. My name is Bradders, and as always, peace out. And I really hope that we can make it home. Please.